Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Today's patron shoutout goes to Coral. Thanks Coral for supporting me through Patreon. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is an exciting one with a bunch of brand new commanders. I've managed to convince everyone at the table to play one of my decks, with John playing my new Coram deck. He keeps Arcane Signet, Forest, Selvala, Disciple of Bolas, Archon of Cruelty, Living Death, and a Smoldering Marsh. Arja has unfortunately been paired up with Azlask, which is frankly the most weird deck I've ever built, and it's just kind of a hot pile. He keeps Isolated Chapel, Canopy Vista, Sulphur Falls, Kalemne, Lazelle, Moldervine Reclamation, and Aristic Study. Matt is playing my Ulalek deck, which is just straight Eldrazi, keeping Forest, Growth Spasm, Spawning Bed, Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, Talisman of Curiosity, and Selective Obliteration. Last but not least, I am playing my patron Coral's deck, which is General Marhault Eldragon. It really wants to make people block, and I'm keeping a Spinerock Knoll, Cinderglade, Reaver Cleaver, Farseek, Rampant Growth, Stuffy Doll, and Gaia's Gift. John wins the die roll and starts us off, but Arja wants to let everyone know something.
I just want to say out loud that I did not build this deck. Just for
no one's going to know. I'm going to tell everyone you did.
John's first turn has him drawing and playing a tapped Sheltered Thicket. Arja draws and plays a tapped Canopy Vista. Matt breaks from the mold, playing an untapped Forest and passing. I just want to fit in, playing a tapped Cinderglade and passing to John. John has a Forest and pays 2 for an Arcane Signet. Arja's turn has him just playing a tapped Sulphur Falls before passing to Matt. Matt's got a Shrine of the Forsaken Gods and pays 2 for a Talisman of Curiosity. My turn has me playing a tapped Spinerock Knoll, and I hide away one of my top 5 cards. John draws and has enough to cast Selvala. He then plays out a tapped Smoldering Marsh and ships the turn. Arja just plays an Isolated Chapel, which comes in untapped, and he then pays 3 for Aristic Study. Mathieu has a Bonder's Enclave, and 3 mana gets him a Growth Spasm. He pays the 1 for the Study, and gets an Eldrazi Spawn token as he goes to find a basic to put to the field. I draw, play a Forest for turn, and cast Farseek, being a good boy and paying the Aristic Study 1. John draws, and activates Selvala, making 2 red mana. He then casts Kedis, paying the tax, and once the lizard resolves, pays 1/1 for the Tortured Existence. He then passes after that. Arja draws and shocks himself with a Godless Shrine, so it'll come in untapped. This gives him enough mana for Kalemne, and he passes after she resolves. Matt plays a Spawning Bed as his land for turn, and then taps out for a Conduit of Ruin, but doesn't pay the 1. This has Arja drawing a card, and Matt goes to tutor for a creature card to put on top that costs 6 or more. He reveals Twins of Discord, putting them on top after shuffling. I draw and cast Rampant Growth to keep the ramp train going, paying the 1 for Aristic Study. I pass while searching for a basic. John's turn is very quick, as he casts Coram in his main phase and doesn't pay the 1 for the Aristic Study, or I should say can't. This lets Arja draw a card, and once Arja's done, John passes. Arja plays a Sea of Clouds for his land for turn, showcasing how greedy my mana base is, and he then pays 3 for Azlask. Arja then goes to combat, hitting me for 6 for making him play Azlask, and then passes to Matt. Matt's turn has him playing Command Tower for turn, and he then casts Up the Beanstalk, paying the 1. He draws as the enchantment enters, which is just bananas frankly, and then taps 4 mana to cast a reduced costing Endbringer. This is Arja drawing a card from Matt not paying the 1, and Matt drawing a card from Up the Beanstalk. With nothing else, Matt passes. I draw and cast Golgari Decoy, showing off one of the main features of this deck, which is forcing people to block when I attack. With nothing else, I pass as it resolves. John draws and goes to combat, swinging Coram at me. He gets his on attack trigger, forcing everyone to mill their top card, and he hits a Forest Pitiless Plunderer from Beyond, and notably, the largest printed power creature in the Coram deck itself, Impervious Greatworm. I don't even need to think about it and just block right away, trying to buy goodwill from Arja and Matt because Kedis is going to put the hurt on them otherwise. John then plays my Forest as his land for turn thanks to Coram's ability, and he then pays the Rhystic Study tax as he casts Garruk's Uprising. He draws as it enters, and what is with these green enchantments that draw as they come in? It's just nuts. He passes after that. Arja draws but is struggling with the deck. He goes to combat, swinging both his Commander and Calamity at me. They connect, and he moves to a second main phase. This is Arja casting Supreme Verdict to try and buy us some time. The board is then wiped, and Arja gets an experience counter from Azlask dying, and he then passes to Matt. Matt's turn has him playing a Waste for his land for turn, and he then casts Ulalek and pays the 1 for the Rhystic Study. He gets to draw a card from Up the Beanstalk, and once his commander's out, cast Talisman of Resilience. Arja realizes at this point he has 8 cards in hand, and discards Second Harvest, which he considers to be incredibly mid as he puts it, and with nothing else to do, Matt passes. I draw and cast Stuffy Doll. As it comes in, I pick John for obvious reasons, and I pass after that. John draws and activates Tortured Existence in his main phase, paying the black to discard an Archon of Cruelty, and returns Coram to his hand. He then recasts Coram, but is unable to pay the 1, and Arja draws a card. John then draws a card as Coram enters from the Uprising, and after that, he passes. Arja casts the first Soul Ring of the game, and then plays Kelsey in the Plague. He follows up with Lizelle, and then goes to combat. Since Kelsian has haste, he swings him at me. Naturally I block with the Stuffy Doll, which has John taking the damage instead. In his second main phase, Arja thinks about doing something, but decides not to, and passes. Mathieu draws and plays an Exotic Orchard, asking if all colors are being represented by lands on the table, which they are. He goes to combat and swings at me with Ulalek, which I block with the Stuffy Doll, and once more, John takes the damage, this time it's 2. Matt's second main phase then has him casting Twins of Discord and paying the Rhystic Study tax. He then pays 2 colorless to Ulalek's ability to copy it. The copy enters first, which means the original copy then enters, and since the copy is already out, sees the first one granting it Bloodthirst 2, so it comes in with 2 +1/+1 counters. With an even beefier twin, Matt then passes turn. I have a Forest for turn, and cast Fiend Lash. I then gear it up onto the Stuffy Doll to make one heck of a Rattlesnake blocker, and ship the turn to John. John draws for turn, and activates Tortured Existence again, which is never a great sign. He discards Rubble Hulk, and returns Kedis to hand, and then casts a Legendary Lizard, not paying the 1 and letting Arja draw. He then goes to combat, swinging Coram at me, and we all mill our top cards, with the table hitting Kessig Wolfrun, Inspiring Leader, Sire of Stagnation, and frankly I just forget. I block with the Stuffy Doll, but before damage, John casts Temur Battle Rage on Coram, having met Ferocious. Now because of Trample, John only needs to assign 2 damage to the Stuffy Doll for each hit, which means I get to deal 4 to him total. Unfortunately though, this means 28 points of damage still get through, which is enough to kill me, and Kedis also deals that much to Arja and Matt. In his second main phase, John then plays a Kessig Wolfrun as his land for turn thanks to Coram's ability, and passes to Arja. Arja draws and plays a Gavany Township as his land for turn. He then pays 3 mana for the very strong War Leader's Call, but with nothing else, just discards down to 7. Mathieu draws her turn and takes a closer look at Coram. He then taps 7 mana for a Hideous Taskmaster, paying the Ristic Study tax. He then pays the 2 colorless for Ulalek's ability, which actually copies the triggered ability of Up the Beanstalk as well. Matt's copy targets Lizelle and Coram with the first ability, and he targets Kedis and Kelsian with the second one. Matt then draws and resolves the first one, and in response to the second one, Arja uses Kelsian to take out Kedis and gains an experience counter. Matt then takes Kelsian and untaps him. Going to combat, Mathieu sends the 2 twins and the 2 taskmasters at John, and Coram, Kelsian, and Lizelle go to Arja. John is dead no matter what, and Arja has to deal with 3 Annihilator triggers before he moves to blocks. He sacrifices 3 tapped lands, and then uses his Soul Ring and some of his remaining lands to help cast Eldrazi Confluence. He picks the mode to blink out Coram and make 2 Eldrazi spawn tokens. The tokens entering deal 1 to each of Arja's opponents, and responding to it, Matt taps Kelsian to kill one of the spawns, but Arja responds to that, sacrificing it to float a colorless. We then move to blocks, and Arja lets 5 go through, and John gets taken out. Matt then passes, and during his end step, gives the creatures back to Arja. Arja untaps and draws for turn. He plays a tapped Path of Ancestry as his land for turn, and goes into the tank on how he can deal with this. Arja starts off by casting Swords to Plowshares and targets Ulalek. Matt has no response, and his commander gets exiled, and he gains 2 life. Arja then goes to combat, swinging Lizelle, Kelsian, and a token, all of which are being pumped by +1/+1 thanks to War Leader's Call. This drops Matt's life total down to 2, and in his second main phase, Arja then casts an Ashnod's Altar. He sacrifices his 3 creatures to make 6 colorless mana, and uses his last land to help cast Skittering Invasion, making 5 Eldrazi spawn tokens. They all come in, triggering the War Leader's Call each, which deals 5 to Matt, which is more than enough to close out the game, and Arja wins. Game review time. So this game was actually only 35 minutes long, and it was incredibly aggressive. And it's one of those games where I built a deck thinking this is mostly just for jokes, and it turned out to work okay. Azlask is predominantly focused on 2 aspects, one of which is experience counters, which is not terribly good since there aren't a lot of them, and the few cards that do care about it don't really synergize all that well together. The second strategy is just making a zillion Eldrazi spawn or Scion tokens and doing degenerate things with them, which is much more successful. The payoff with Azlask is that you can pump them if you need to, but it didn't really seem like Arja needed that this game. The other decks that I built were also kind of cool. Ulalek is just kind of generic Eldrazi. Eldrazi's are very good, copying them is even better, copying their cast triggers is great, it's just very mana hungry. I think that Hideous Taskmaster is probably one of the strongest cards in the deck, as stealing potentially up to 3 creatures and giving them Annihilator is just really, really good. Coram, on the other hand, performed much more aggressively than I was expecting. It certainly didn't hurt that John hit the biggest printed creature in the deck with the Impervious Great Worm, and things just kind of got out of hand from there. Kedis is a fun inclusion in any kind of commander-based deck that focuses around combat, since you're spreading all that love, and having trample on your commander is not that hard and green, so Coram was just connecting constantly, and pretty much a threat from the get-go. The patron-submitted deck was really, really fun. I liked the concept when they sent it to me, and I was really excited to try it out. Unfortunately, the rest of the table weren't so excited, but thankfully I filmed a second game with it, and it performed even better than this one, so look forward to seeing that in the future. Anyway, I did this in one take without making any mistakes, so please give me a comment down below. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.